Hey everybody, I'm Ebony. This is Ebonee's Creativity. Thank you so much for joining me here on my channel. Today I am super excited because I finally got to try something that I have had the itch to try for a while now, and that is chopping a desk down the middle and making 2 nightstands out of it. I don't know why, but I've been on some kind of set kick lately. Today's video is a set of nightstands, and last video was a set of dressers, children's set, and I will link that in the iCard as well as in the description box below. But yes, I don't know why I'm making so much work for myself, but there are certain things that I have in my head that I'm just really eager to try, so I'm just doing it. So hopefully you can get something from this video. If you like it, please like the video, thumbs it up, leave me a comment and let me know how you think it turned out, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and let's hop right into the flip.
It's Ebonee's Creativity.
Alright, so this is a piece we're going to be working on today. Like I said, it came from Marketplace, and I typically like to get things from Marketplace, even though sometimes I have to pay, because when they come right out of people's homes, most of the time they're really clean. So this one came straight out of somebody's house, and it's typically cleaner that way than if you just find it on the side of the street. So I knew that this one wouldn't require that much in terms of cleaning. It would be in pretty decent condition, and I was really happy about that. So as you can see, everything looks really good. There's a few scuff marks, but it really looks like it hasn't been abused too badly, which is a good thing. Scrolling around to the side, you can see there's very little to no damage, so that's really good. This top I won't be using, but it's in really, really good condition, and this side is pretty good too, so it has some nice details. I looked all over this and could not find maker's marks, so I don't know who it's by, but you can see when you see dovetails, that's generally good construction. So hey, let's go. Going to start out by removing all the drawers, and you can see here where I made a mark with a pen, and that's where I'm going to be cutting this in pieces. I made sure that it was not right up against the edge where I needed it to be, because I'm not that great with my saw. So I gave myself some wiggle room, and I did not try to cut it exactly how I needed it to be on my first pass. So here I am with the circular saw, and I gotta say, we haven't always been friends, but we're becoming better acquainted, so that's good. I had to move this desk all around just to get the right angles that I needed. So you'll see it in a couple of different positions, but basically I'm just trying to get it into 3 pieces. So it'd be the drawer on the left, the centerpiece, and then the drawers on the right. I just knew that this would be my final cut, and that everything was going to be just peaches and cream, and this was going to come apart, and I was going to be happy because I was able to finally do something with my saw. But that didn't work. So as you can see, that middle bar was really strong, and it was not cutting all the way through with my circular saw. I really don't know how to change the depth, so I had to just abandon the saw and hit it with a hammer to break it into pieces, and then it finally is 3 pieces now, which is what I was going for. So now that I have it in 3 pieces, I'm just going to work on removing that top piece. I don't like trim pieces, as you know, if you've watched any of my previous flips where I always knock them off. So that's what you'll see me doing here. And I'm just finding those hidden screws that are holding the top on as well. So all of that stuff has to go. This whole piece was made from hardwood except for the top part. So that's why I'm taking it off, because it's made from like a really thin piece of laminate, and I just wanted it to all be made from wood and have one consistent material. Here is the huge trim piece that is on the bottom of this, and I tried to remove it. I tried several different things, and I just ended up going in with my screwdriver and a hammer and kind of just hitting it and messing with it until it came off. Whenever I'm removing things like trim pieces from a piece, my goal is to get it off in one piece. So I know I could have probably just whacked this and it would have split into a couple pieces, and I would have been able to get them off that way. But I just like to try to keep one piece, and that kind of just makes it easier and keeps the cleanup at a minimum. So I struggled with this trim piece for what seemed like forever, and the other one was the same way. But I'm only just showing you this one, and at the moment that I was able to get it off, my camera died. So you weren't able to see it, but I did just end up ripping it off. And now I'm finding more of those hidden screws that are holding on that top piece. I'm still working to remove that as well. Sometimes these screws are very well hidden and hard to find and hard to reach with a standard size screwdriver, so I did have to pull out my little short one. I used the drill, I used the long one, I used whatever I had to use to get to them. And once 3 were out, here's the 4th screw that was holding it in, and the top popped right off. Like I said before, when I was cutting initially with the circular saw, I did not cut right up against the side panels because I did not want to mess up. I'm not that great with the jigsaw or the circular saw, but at least I'm trying, right? So here are the pieces that were left over, left sticking out of the side, and right now I'm just using the jigsaw to kind of shave those down, and then eventually I'll end up hitting it with a hammer because the jigsaw will not go all the way through. So I just do things by any means necessary until I can get a little bit better with working with my tools. I have the tools, I'm just not very comfortable with some of them. So now you just see me removing those extra pieces and kind of trying to shave it down so that I'm right up against the edge of the dresser. So yeah, that's what you see me doing now, just cutting off all those spare pieces. And here's how it looked after those were completely gone. So as you can see, I'm going to have to do some patchwork. So once I got both of the body pieces of the dressers to the same point, I stopped and switched over to working with the drawers, and I am just going to be removing all of the hardware and placing those in a Ziploc bag. Up next, I'll be using my orbital sander and this 220 grit sandpaper to bring all of these drawers down to the wood. I was able to get through all of these quickly, and they did clean up really nicely, so I was very happy about that. As I sanded, I did notice that the original hardware left kind of like a bleached effect where you can still see the outline of it on some of the drawers, but when I applied my final finish, they all turned out nicely, so that was nothing to really worry about. Because I wanted to try to contain the cost of this piece and I did have to buy a few other things, I wanted to use these pulls that I already had on hand, but they were an half an inch too big. So I just used the existing hole and moved them over a 1/4 inch each to make up for the half inch. On the top drawers, the middle was routed through, so I wasn't quite sure how I should handle putting the hardware there, but I just decided to keep it consistent and I went straight through the middle of that routed section. I knew that I would be filling in the pre-existing holes, so I wanted to go ahead and make my new holes while everything was still clear and there was no quickwood on there. But when I tried to do that, my holes started to flow together. So I had to go ahead and mix up my quickwood and fill the pre-existing holes before I could drill the new ones. If you've never worked with quickwood before, it's putty. Basically, if you've ever used Play-Doh, it's kind of similar to that, except it smells like burnt rubber. And what it is that there's a middle part that's white and the outside portion is kind of like a brownish tannish color, and you just want to mix them with your fingers until they are one uniform color, and then you can apply them to fill in missing chunks or holes from hardware or whatever else you need to fill on any wood furniture. When you do use it, you want to make sure that you move quickly because it will start to dry and get harder to maneuver. And also, I've learned to use more than what you actually need. Like on mine, you'll see me putting a lot down into these holes where the drawer pull was, just so that I can have some leeway when I go to sand. I won't just think I'm sanding the quick wood and start sanding into the wood on the piece. So this is just kind of like a buffer for when you go to sand. You have more material there so you can make less of a mistake. And here's how they all looked when they were filled. I also used the quickwood on the areas that I had to sand down with the jigsaw where the two pieces were once connected, just so that I could make sure I was able to fill those parts in and get them sanded smooth. And again, I'm applying more than I actually need as a buffer for sanding. While I'm waiting for my quickwood to dry, I'm just going to go ahead and move forward with making my new holes. I'm also going to sand the drawer pulls just so that the paint will be able to adhere a little bit better, because I'm going to be making these gold. The black does not work for the colors that I have in mind. So I'm sanding, then wiping them down with a wet cloth, and then I'm going to be using some metallic gold spray paint by Rust-Oleum to spray paint them gold. And I did spray them, wait for them to dry, turn them upside down, and spray them again. Next day, I'm starting out by sanding down all of that quick wood that has dried overnight. It does dry very, very, very hard, so I'm using a 40 grit sandpaper, but I'm keeping a careful eye not to go through my wood with it. I'm really just focusing on all the areas that have quick wood. If you stay in one area with 40 grit sandpaper for too long, you will definitely eat through that area. So I'm just being very careful. It's not recommended to use this orbital saw how I'm using it, but hey, I got to do what I got to do. So I'm just trying to really pinpoint the areas where I'm trying to stay and really make sure that I do not eat through any other section with the sander. I went through so much sandpaper on this project. This is just after doing a few areas of the quickwood. Most times when I do use the quickwood, I do go over it with wood filler because it's not necessarily always smooth. It just depends on how you apply it. So I like to put wood filler on top of mine, and I'm just going to apply the wood filler as I'm doing my scuff sanding of the rest of this. I'm trying to kind of multitask to get this done as quickly as possible. Sand it around the areas that I used the quickwood on, and now I'm going back on those areas where I used it to just apply some wood filler just to make sure that it turns out extra smooth in the end. Much like when I'm using the quickwood, I apply more wood filler than what I need so that I can make sure I have a buffer when I am going back to sand. And when this wood filler dries, I'll also be using the 220 grit sandpaper to come back over these areas. Right now, we're just about at the halfway point of this video, so I did want to go ahead and request that those of you who have made it this far and have not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. While I'm waiting on that wood filler to dry, I decided to go ahead and cut 2 new top pieces, and I'm just sanding those down with 220 grit sandpaper, even though they were already sanded when I got them. With the price of wood creeping back up, I did not want to have to buy more than what I actually needed, so I decided to combine 2 smaller pieces to create one section because I was only able to get one full section out of the piece that I had. Then I had to use the remaining pieces to create this, so I just put some wood glue in between them and some staples and clamped it and let it dry overnight. I decided to do a wash on the front of these drawers, so I have Fusion Cathedral Taupe. And as you can see, I've made it very runny, and I'm just going to be applying it to the drawers and then wiping it back with a microfiber cloth. Because of the initial idea I had in mind, you'll only see me painting the top half of these, but I ended up going back and doing the whole thing. If you've never done a paint wash before, the idea is to make the paint very, very watery and just to wipe it back as quickly as possible, and you're kind of just creating a stain out of paint. Whereas when we paint, we want full coverage. With a stain, we want to be able to still see some of that wood grain showing through. I've noticed people starting to do black washing, and I think it looks really cool. So you can really do this technique with any color that you want, but in my case, I just wanted a color that was pretty close to the natural wood tone, so that's why I chose this Cathedral Taupe by Fusion. If you watched my dining table makeover, which will be linked in the playlist below, you will see that I tried to do this technique with my dining table, but then I got a little bit afraid and I kind of just backed off and went another route. But when I did it on this, it turned out beautifully just as I expected, and it was just the look that I wanted. I stuck my drawers back in the body part just to make sure that my stripes would be lined up, and that's what I'm doing here with my painter's tape. I'm just mapping out stripes. So I'm placing one piece down, using that as a spacer, placing my next piece, removing the previous piece, and I'm just doing that all the way down. I also have a video on my channel about how to get perfectly straight paint lines when you're using painter's tape. The key to that is by using poly, so you can go and check that video out as well. It will definitely be linked below too. But essentially, the keys are to go over all of your edges with poly and to make sure that the tape is really firmly pressed down. You see me use a lot of fusion paint on this channel, but Wise Owl is my favorite. So that's what I'll be using for this. The fusion is just more easily available to me than the Wise Owl is. You also see me doing a lot of hand painting on this channel. I rarely roll anymore, but the Wise Owl suggests that you do not use a paintbrush with it, that you use a roller or you spray it. So I felt a roller would be best in this instance. And because I need to pull my tape off while my paint is still wet, I'm just going to go over this as quickly as I can, trying to get the best coverage as I can. I'm going to try to hit all the areas twice. This paint is called 1 hour enamel because it does dry quickly. So I'm moving quickly to make sure that I cover all this area and get as opaque of a finish as I can while trying to move quickly, and so I can remove my tape while my paint is still wet. So I was able to do that, and I just think that that stain and this paint color really look good together. So I'm happy with how this is turning out. But like I said, you want to remove your tape while your paint is still wet. While I'm waiting on the drawers to dry, I'm going to go ahead and do my first coat of primer. I am using the Ben Shellac primer, and I will be doing 2 coats on both body portions. Ben primer does start to dry really quickly, so I was able to do 2 coats on each this night. So as you can see, this is how they turned out, completely opaque. I love the Ben primer. I really don't use any other primer because it just does everything I need for it to do. While I'm waiting for that second coat to dry, I am taking the sponge and my Tough Coat by Fusion, which is just a polyacrylic top coat, and I am going to be applying 1 coat on each of the drawers, waiting for that to dry, and applying another coat on top. My method for applying this is to do the edges and then to work my way toward the center, and then just to get smooth strokes all the way across. If you have problems with applying polyacrylic, then I would really strongly suggest that you try this top coat. Next day, I am going over that Ben primer with some 400 grit sandpaper just to smooth out the orange peel texture that it leaves. Then I'm going in with my pneumatic nailer just to secure the tops. And don't judge my deck, I am in the process of redoing that as well. Once the tops are secure, I am just going to clean up the edges with caulk. I'm also going to put wood filler in the holes created by the nails. I don't have footage of it, but I did do like a half coat of Ben on top of everything I just filled in the caulk, just to make sure my paint would be going over one medium. And now I am applying my paint. And I am using the Wise Owl Snow Owl 1 hour enamel. I really love Wise Owl paint because it is self-leveling, which helps out if you're a new painter, and also because no top coat is required. So all I had to do was 2 coats of this paint and I was pretty much done. This paint does only take 1 hour to dry, so while I waited for that, I went ahead and reattached the handles. Now we are going to take a look back at where we started from, and voila, here is where we are now. Normally when I do projects, I kind of have a vision before I get started. My vision for this was only to chop this desk into 2 nightstands, so I did not have the colors thought out or anything like that. But I think that my spur of the moment thinking gave me some really cute beachy nightstands. I could also see these in a nursery, so I think they turned out pretty cute. Let me know what you think in the comment sections down below, and thank you so much for watching. If you have not, please subscribe to my channel. Please engage with me by leaving comments or hitting the thumbs up button on your way out of the video. If you enjoy the content, those things really help my channel to grow, so I greatly appreciate that. Let me know what you think about how these turned out. Thank you so much for watching. And since a flipper's work is never done, I am headed off to work on our next flip. But if you have the time, please stick around the channel and find some of the other videos that I have here that may be of interest to you. Thank you guys again for watching, and I will talk to you guys in the next flip. Bye guys.